Welcome to episode 2 of the Performance Advantage podcast with myself, Dr. Will O'Connor, and yourself, Dr. Matt Miller, A.K.A
Dr. Matt
PhD.
Yeah.
Doctor.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, Matt. This is a topic very, very close to my heart.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, it's like the topic that we're going to talk about today is probably close to a lot of people's hearts.
Yeah, diet is very, very, everyone's got their opinion and it's almost like religion. A lot of the time I don't tell people what I did my thesis on. I just sort of say, nutritional sports performance or biochemical muscular stuff. Depends who I want to impress. Depends what my audience is. Otherwise, I just get told what people ate for breakfast.
Yeah.
And they want opinions on if it was any good. Actually, a lot of people don't want opinions. They just tell me how good they eat.
Well, it's like when you're vegan. So, disclaimer, I was vegan for 7 years, obviously. And, people love to talk about that stuff.
Yeah, they probably love to hear you tell them why they...
No. I never did that. Actually, and I stopped telling people because I just didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Like what people had to say or the same questions all the time.
Yeah.
So you probably get those. So what we're going to talk about today is what?
Low carbohydrate endurance performance. How to incorporate, well, essentially what I did in my study. Okay, so I'll just give you a background to my whole sort of 5 years of existence in studying for my PhD. I came into, so I was essentially, let's take a step back. I was training on the Gold Coast to be a professional triathlete. I was training at a professional level, but I was far from ready to train at that level. Alongside that, I was trying to lose weight, and the way to do that was completely eliminate fat. So I was just eating carbs, like carbs and protein. Like I would cut the fat off bacon, like very, very.
That's the best part.
Yeah, well, you're telling me you're a vegan. So yeah, I kept gaining weight, and it was blind. Like, I just couldn't figure it out, and I was just continuously hungry. I could control like my super low fat diet for maybe a week or so before I'd like need a binge eat almost. And then at that time, I was on the Twitter. I'm not sure if kids still using Twitter. I was on there. So this is probably 8 years ago now. And Tim Noakes was he was very vocal about low carb and how it could change the world and blah, blah. So I was like, this seems to actually make sense. Like when I was looking into his research and the science behind it, and I thought, well, I'll give it a crack. And the results were like dramatic. Like I could start to see the fat just falling off of me. I was feeling better. I was training better. Recovery was faster. And at that stage, I had decided like I'm not interested in being a professional athlete. I saw what it takes, and it just wasn't for me. So, but I still want to compete.
So then that's when you got science.
Yeah, I still want to compete at a high level.
That's when you decided to get into science, isn't it?
Yeah. I didn't want a real job, so do a PhD. I can still train as much as I want, and I can just study really. Matt, I'm just going to check. Are you frozen? Yes, he is. I'll keep talking and see if he comes back. So once I had got my registration and everything for the PhD, then I was able to look into it. He's back on.
Yeah. Hey guys.
Some people don't have fiber.
Well, I argued with the internet company for like an hour the other day, so we'll have it soon.
Yeah, that's definitely not how you get things done with telecommunications companies.
Yeah, well.
Anyway, Matt, I was just getting to the point in my story where I was saying, and I didn't want a job, and I still wanted to train at a high level, so I started research. in sports as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, it
Yeah.
makes sense.
That's
And
a standard story for getting into sports science, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And then, like, I guess what you don't realize is you also are no longer going to want a job for the rest of your life because no one's going to employ you.
Yeah. Well, that's to be seen.
Another topic for another day.
Yeah.
Oh, that's to be seen. How's your job?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. Great, actually.
Uh, yes. So I got into the PhD, and the main crux of my thesis was like, I think low carbohydrate, removing the carbs from someone's diet, has to enable them to utilize fat at a higher rate, faster rate. And so then when you can incorporate carbohydrates back in, you can then sort of have this super performance where you can perform at, you know, you have these higher fat burning rates, and fat is abundant on anyone, the leanest person, and then so is oxygen. So you burn fat, you burn oxygen, you're good to go. And then if you can put carbs and like an anaerobic metabolism on top of that, you would then go super fast. And so what I did is designed a study, 4 weeks low carb, 4 weeks high carb, crossover design. Obviously couldn't placebo it. You knew what diet you were eating. And I had a 4 to 5 hour time trial. It was essentially 160K time trial in the lab to test the ultra endurance. That's where I thought it'd be most effective. That's where carbohydrates sort of play, I guess, the least part. Not like a 10K run, you know, which the elites are doing around 30 minutes, a little bit low, a little bit above males and females. And we're looking at like 4 to 5 hours. Yes.
4 to 5 hour time trial in the lab. That sucks. Okay. I'll tell you that because I did it, and I can tell you're really passionate about it. I know you're really passionate about it. And, you know, I was the guinea pig on all your experiments. So I know what's going on here, but let's backpedal for everyone that's listening. And let's talk about, let's talk about you when you were racing on high carbs and how you felt. Let's talk about that first.
Okay.
So what's kind of going on there? So you're training a lot. You're cutting out all the fat because you want to try and lose fat. Yes. What's actually happening?
So what is actually happening is you are getting into a situation where you're trying, your body essentially wants to burn fat, and it can only store and burn so much carbohydrate. So when you're overloading your system with carbohydrate, it can't burn it all. It just the way in which our, I guess, metabolism is designed, it can't burn carbs most probably at the rate you're feeding them. So it's going to be converted to fat. And then by eating so much carbs, and not always the best quality, sometimes it is just high GI, it's just the way it is, high glycemic index, similar to like sugar, then you increase your insulin concentrations, which further minimizes your ability to burn fat. So now you get this double negative where you're storing fat because you're eating too much carbs and you can't burn it fast enough. And then you are putting your body in a state that reduces fat burning anyway. And so
what's actually happening to you then when you go out and exercise, when you're on like a really, really high carbohydrate diet, probably doing too much intensity or something like that?
Yeah.
What's actually happening?
Like it does get complicated, especially in what I found during my research. So you're burning carbs at a really high rate. And this high rate is, as I just mentioned before, is finite. Like, the rate at which you burn it isn't finite. The amount you can store.
Yeah, right. So how much carbohydrate can you store? So we store it as glycogen.
Yeah. And
where do we store it, and how much can we store?
We store it 90% in the muscle, and you'd store 400 to 500 grams, depending on your muscle mass, obviously. So 500 grams if you took like your sort of standard 70, 75, 80 kg male. Obviously, you go either side of that, it's going to be a little less.
Yeah. So we start exercising. We start exercising, and if we're exercising at, you know, a high intensity or something that demands those carbohydrates, we'll take it out of the muscle, right?
Yeah, and that happens regardless of your metabolic flexibility. So, or, so your ability to burn fat, regardless of that, when you go hard, you will burn carbs. Fat just can't be oxidized at a fast enough rate. But the trouble we get into is when we're eating high carb, low fat, so minimizing our fat intake, is that we start to rely on carbohydrate even during the easy training. Now, this is where, when you look out at a endurance event, a marathon, an Ironman, half Ironman, even, round Taupo for Kiwis, 160K cycle race, and you see all these fatty people, these middle-aged men in lycra that are just,
Mammals.
they're doing 5 hours plus of exercise and they're still carrying so much body fat. How is this possible? Like, they're training at least 10 hours a week and of aerobic based sort of training. Generally, they're probably thrashing themselves a little bit, but they should not be carrying that much body fat. But what they're doing is just, they're on the Powerades, they're on the Stroop waffles, performance waffles, they're on the Special K, they're on the Up and Goes, all of this stuff that is actually just causing them to store fat in their already, how would you say it, damaged metabolic system.
So really, by reducing the amount of carbohydrates that we take in through our diet, we can increase the amount of fat that we the rate at which we oxidize fat.
Yes, exactly. So next time, let's just fast forward 6 months. You were at the extent that I was in cutting fat off the bacon, and you fast forward 6 months to the point where I was eliminating almost all carbohydrates. Then I would, I rode from my parents' house in Havelock North to Palmy, which is around 190 Ks, and all I had was one Moro bar. So that's one 60-gram, 68-gram chocolate bar. So I was able to utilize my stored body fat at such a level that I didn't need to eat anything. Whereas beforehand, I would have really struggled to go more than 2 hours without jamming my face. And again, you're overeating generally in that sense. You'll stop at the cafe, you'll get, too much carbohydrate that your body can't even metabolize anyway. So then you start to store some of that, and then you eat after the ride. And so it's the snowball effect where you end up with weight gain and chronic training.
Yeah, right. Cool. So if someone, what kind of athletes do you think this is beneficial for? Because I know when I tried your trials, for some of the things that I was doing, it didn't really work out too well. But for other times it did. So
the main, a big takeaway for me was, I was going in with the blinkers on, sort of going, this is going to change the world. I'm going to show that, these studies had been done at too higher intensity, or they hadn't been done for a long enough adaptation period. So I had 4 weeks and I had a 4 to 5 hour, endurance ride. This is going to be perfect. What I found with the highly trained athletes that I dealt with, males and females, in the males, it didn't matter what you fed them. They were metabolically flexible or efficient enough. Okay, so what I mean by that is, if you hit it out like they did in this test for a full-on effort for 5 hours, you can burn fat, although it's not at a super high rate like it is when you remove carbohydrate from your diet. You can burn it at a high enough rate that you won't run out of carbohydrate over that duration, as long as you take in, I was allowing them 40 grams of carbs per hour. The tests were almost similar. The only thing that differed was, on the low carbohydrate diet, you lost body fat, so your power to weight ratio was significantly better. That didn't show in the times because it's just a fixed, electronically braked ergometer, as opposed to a running race or something where you're fighting gravity. I'm not sure, I got carried away. Is that your question?
Yeah, Yeah. Yes. All that was all of my
Yeah.
questions.
So,
You've answered
so
every question I could have.
once you start coming down the levels, the fitness levels, so I dealt with yourself, highly trained male athlete, as well as highly trained females. The females essentially hated the diet, but performed really well. And I'll get on to that in a bit as to why, uh, what my study should have showed that was predominantly due to. But as we get down the fitness levels, the intensity in which we're exercising at decreases. So, if you have a look at, for an Ironman or an ultra marathon, your elite athlete can get up to like 80, probably even 85% of VO2 max
And maintain it.
and maintain it for up to 9 hours,
So that's a sign of high fitness, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's one of the indicators that we use is how high is your threshold compared to the max that you can possibly do.
Yes. So VO2 max essentially being just the ceiling, arbitrary number that doesn't mean too much when you're looking at, good athletes anyway. And then you go down from that. Like if you can't get anywhere near it for 30 minutes, then you're very inefficient. You're not going to perform optimally. Although you may have a huge capacity to do so. So as we start going down the training levels or the competitive levels, however you want to politically correctly.
Someone who's just not as good, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That's okay.
Yeah. So someone who's going to take longer. Okay. So then we look at an athlete isn't around that 7 to 9 hours. They're around that 15 hours. But they're covering the same distance. So they're obviously exercising at a far less intensity, regardless of their ceiling. Like just the energy expenditure at a rate, energy expended across an hour isn't going to be as high as it is for that elite athlete who's having to generate so much more force to go so much faster. So as we get down, then our reliance or need for carbohydrate in relation to performance, because now optimal performance is not really your goal. Your goal is more efficiency across a duration. So we're actually looking at almost a completely different requirement of the system.
You just kind of need to last for 15 hours, don't you?
Like it's just a matter of getting through. Okay. It's not a matter of like, what is the absolute maximum potential I can squeeze out of my body, sort of disregarding the mental aspect of it. Like biochemically, physiologically, what can I get? Whereas once we start going down the ability levels, that's not really it. What you're trying to do is not break down. Okay. Yeah. And if you're relying on carbohydrate for 15 hours as, a very high proportion of your energy, you're going to break down because it's not a sustainable energy source like fat is.
Yeah. So that's not to say that the people that aren't elite are not doing the maximum that they can, because they are, but they're just doing it in a different way, which actually requires a little bit different of a fuel source.
Yeah. That it's a durational thing. There's also the musculoskeletal side of things, which is a different topic in itself. But if we're just looking at the biochemical, fueling side of things, then you can really bring your carbohydrate intakes down, so that fat is the predominance, because you may be at 70-60% of your VO2 max, which, well, if you've trained without carbohydrate, that's a sustainable level for sure.
Yeah. Cool. So, I think people are going to be wondering kind of what your experiments actually were. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about that. And from memory, I think you had 3 main studies for your PhD.
Yeah.
So we had the first one.
The other ones I kind of leave out a little bit because they had the ketone supplement.
Yeah.
Which is that's a big topic.
Okay, so we'll save the ketones for another time. The ketone supplement, right?
But there was an important that study without the ketone supplement, just having restricted the diet to a ketosis level, which is different to a low carbohydrate. And people need to understand that when you reduce your carbohydrate intake at such a degree, so you're essentially eating nothing, you are then generating ketones to beta hydroxybutyrate, acetoacetate, acetate, which can be utilized as a fuel source in the brain, cardiac tissue, and things in place of glucose. So you've then, your body is so restricted in its glucose, its carbohydrate intake, that it's generated an alternate fuel source. When my major study, which was the 4 weeks, I limited the participants to 2 grams per kg per day. So Matt, at that time, you're about 60 kgs.
Yeah.
Let's just say you were 60 kgs,
Yep.
and 2 grams per kg. So it's 2 grams, 60.
Yep. So 120 grams
120
carbohydrates per day, which actually that's pretty low, isn't it?
It's low, but it's also high for some people who are like, oh, I thought you're only allowed 40. But as you know, I got everyone to record their diet, everything they ate on a daily basis.
And we use MyFitnessPal.
Yeah. When you do it to that level, Matt, you know how many carbohydrates you just ingest without specifically noticing it.
Yeah, they just come from nowhere. Like if I was having 2 coffees a day with milk.
Yeah, flat whites. Yep.
Yeah, so I'd get 30 grams of carbs just in the milk.
Yeah, and then you have your salad, and you've got your tomatoes, your cucumbers, lettuce has a couple, and so and as an athlete who's exerting 3,000, 2,500, 4,000 in big training days, calories, and so you're trying to intake that, then it becomes really hard to actually keep it that low. This is a lot different and this is where sports science gets clumped in with normal science. It's a lot different to someone who sits in an office all day and exerts, intakes around 1,500 calories. You're doing twice that.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're eating twice as much food. So you actually, just because of the mass amount of food you're eating, you have more opportunity to get a little bit of carbohydrate here and there.
Yeah. So you also, and on the other side of that is you burn more just through your existence.
Yeah.
Right. So then if we go back, so 2 grams per kg per day for 4 weeks. And I tested them at the start, before just natural diet. And we tested a fasted fixed intensity 2-hour ride at halfway and at the end. So that was our fixed measurement. See, when you do a scientific study, you need to compare like with like. So with a time trial, if I was going to take your blood every 30 minutes during the time trial, but in the first one, you went super hard for the first hour and absolutely bombed, then I've got a completely different blood sample to it.
Yeah, sure. You need to control it. So you need to control.
Did a nice negative split, completely different. So what
obviously
I did fixed the intensity for a 2-hour ride, and then that was each time you're at your 65% of your VO2 max power output. So yeah, let's say 200 watts, boom, 200 watts each time. I'm getting a like versus like comparison. And then I could take the blood samples and the respiratory gases to see what fuels you're burning.
Yeah, so lots of cool science going on in each of those experiments. And we did those from memory. We did a steady state test at
so that was the steady state.
Yeah. Then we did a steady state at week 2, at the end of week 2, and then another steady state, and then a big time trial at the end of week 4.
Yeah.
And in that whole time, we did the same exact training for each set of 4 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. So I controlled that on the Wahoo kickers. So it was power controlled. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did the same exact training, same power, everything. But before any of this even started, so we did those 2 4-week blocks twice. But before that started, we did a 5-hour time trial just as a baseline measure.
Yeah. Just to see what.
Inside. Indoors.
Yeah. And then I was obviously taking your blood, I don't even know how many times, 8 times within the fixed date. a couple
Yeah.
of times before and after the main time trial. So this is very involved. 13 people, eight guys and 5 females. Yeah.
There's a lot going on. I remember actually, after I did that first 5-hour time trial, I was so blown, and
Oh, you went and fell asleep on the floor?
but that was
You did.
that was after you got me fish and chips. So that was the first time I had fish and chips.
Oh, yeah.
After that 5-hour time trial, and I loved it. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you are a big fan. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Yeah. So okay. So how did people find the different diets? Because not everyone that did your study was at the elite level, or really training. Even though they did the controlled training, they weren't at the same training level. So how did if you could just give us a few examples of how people felt, and I'll tell you how I felt because I remember.
Okay.
And then you can tell me why I felt that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a definite contrast between the men and the women. So the men, everyone is like, it blew their mind. How is this possible? How am I losing weight, like body fat? How am I feeling better? How do I have more energy? So there was that. There's just
On the low carb.
On the low carb was like just an overall positive. The high carb was different depending on where people had come from. If they were already eating, I had one very good, just pure cyclist. He was on a diet similar to my old one of super strict low fat. So when we put him on the high carb, he wasn't really feeling any different, but he noticed like the low carb was completely contrasting to what is normal. So in the high carb, a lot of people, some were like, oh man, I'd never eat this many carbs consistently, because on average, out of the whole 13 people, everyone ate a pretty standard diet of around, I don't know, I guess you'd look at, no one was like, besides that guy, specifically avoiding fat. 20 to 30% of their caloric intake was fats, 20%, 15 to 20% was protein, and the remainder was carbohydrate. And that's probably what you get if you took a sample of a very large population of athletes.
Standard.
Actually, in my thesis, I did reference a paper that did exactly that. Yeah. And that's about what you get, and so that's when for the cohort that I had that finding that if you sort of fed the athletes anything, they are metabolically flexible enough. When I say metabolically flexible, I mean, if I took all the carbs out of your diet, you can burn fat and get away with it. You'll be all good. And if I took heaps of fat away from your diet and just gave you carbs, you'd still be all good. It's the inflexibility where I took all the carbs away and then you're completely cracked and you can't do anything, which people found over the first 2 weeks. So there's a huge mood swing around that 2 weeks. The first week, some people were just like, oh, this is quite an adjustment dietary wise. But then it wasn't until the second week where it was like, wow, I am not enjoying this.
They weren't enjoying the low carb.
Yeah, at around after a few days, they've burnt off. What happens there, why this feeling comes about, is you burn off your remaining carbohydrate. Man, I said you can store carbohydrate. Yep. Well, when you're no longer intaking it, it starts to run out. And so after a few days, it's run out. You've been training, you've been doing whatever. You've now exhausted that, but you have not yet been able to burn your fat enough to make up for that deficit.
Right.
You're burning carbs. Let's say you burn 100 units of energy and you used to burn 30% carbs and 70% fat. You now no longer have 30% carbs and you can only burn 70% fat. You now have a 30% energy deficit until you can burn fat at a fast enough rate.
Right. So if we're on a low carbohydrate diet, we have this stored glycogen that we convert to glucose. We're going to use it at bits and parts throughout the day. And those glycogen stores gradually get filled up with new glycogen that we can convert to glucose and use for fuel. But if we're not taking in lots of carbohydrate, the tank is less and less full when we wake up in the morning. So you find yourself after a few days maybe feeling a bit empty.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Well, how you tell me. Did
Yeah,
I mean,
so
you'd never experienced anything like this?
no, I mean, I was coming into it from being a vegan, and
Yep.
pretty much vegans eat mostly carbohydrates because
Corn
that's what ends
chips,
up, yeah,
corn.
Doritos and lollies and stuff, right? So I was kind of coming into it from that end, and after about 10 days or something of the low carb, um, I didn't feel very good.
Yeah.
Um, and the training that we were doing wasn't very intense. It was kind of some threshold work. And I didn't feel great, got through it. But then after about 2 weeks, I just started to feel amazing.
Yeah.
On the low carb.
Yeah. And what about the contrasting that with the high carb? How did you find it?
Yeah, well, I just remember with the high carb, that was way more carbohydrate than I was used to eating, I guess, because I was on a pretty standard kind of eating thing. And about 3 weeks into the high carb, in the training, I remember doing one of the time trials or the steady state fasted rides,
Yeah.
and I had to stop. Like I was like,
Oh,
no,
that's
Will,
right.
I can't go anymore. Like I literally just can't.
Yeah.
I was just blown within 2 hours.
Yeah, I think so. With those steady state rides, I was doing them fasted to get to give the best indication of what fuels the muscles were burning at the time of exercise. And yeah, you and also the other guy was very, very low fat in his diet, struggled, and that struggle streak comes from your inability to burn fat at a high enough rate. Oh, that's right, you were in such a state.
But I'm pretty sure that was on the high carb.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely was.
It didn't feel very good. And also like in the fourth week of training or something like that, I also had to reduce the intensity in some of the rides just because I just couldn't maintain it.
Yeah, and that comes from, I mean, that goes beyond the sort of standard metabolic fueling side of things, and that goes into chronic inflammation. It can go into nutrient absorption, quality of foods, um, yeah, the hormonal balances,
yeah.
all of that kind of thing, which is not what I was looking. I'm not a registered dietitian. I think one of them you can say you can, one of them say you can't.
Yeah. You can't, you have to be registered as a nutrition. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm a sports scientist. I was specifically looking at fueling high, high level athletes. I wasn't, looking at that studies share the gut health or anything
Yeah.
like that. But as anecdotal evidence, no one was like, oh, I've been blocked up or whatever. They just generally felt a lot better, which is, I think, goes back more to the level of food you're eating. Fats are more dense, so the volume's less. Then the fuels you're burning are cleaner, I guess, during exercise. So it helps in the recovery state of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really where we got there. And also overall, even in the ketosis study, so where people were at 50 grams, and I got strung over the coals for having even 50 grams for a ketosis study. But I was trying to say, like I said before, these guys, and there was just men in this one, training at such a high level, like 50 grams is nothing. It's like 20 grams for a sedentary person. But anyway, everyone else had done 20 grams a day.
Oh, that's
So,
just scientists.
so what happened there was no one went backwards. For 2 weeks, these guys can eat 50 grams of carbohydrates a day. And I give them carbs the night before, carbo load, because I'm not saying that you can't, I'm not saying that you can exercise at high levels without carbohydrate. You definitely need it for optimal performance. This is what I'd give them. So just one night of carving up with some rice, you remember those meals?
Yep. Yeah, they're good.
Yeah. So to standardize the food that that everyone took in, it was just like, what are they, like the heat and eat meals? Anyway, and some
Yeah, TV
apple
dinners.
juice, TV dinners. That's it. And yeah, the next day, no one went backwards.
Yeah.
Which is, and so that one of the key takeaways is that everyone, I'm not going to say everyone, because there may be specific health issues where people shouldn't, but predominantly everyone who's training for endurance events should try a low carbohydrate diet to see if it works for them.
Yeah.
And give it at least
yeah.
2 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks would be optimum.
Yep.
And you can do that, not do it in the most crucial time of your build up.
Yes. When would we try it? What time of the season would we try this? What kind of training would we be doing?
And like, if quality of training is really important, then you're going to feel pretty crappy for 2 weeks potentially. Some people respond immediately, and yeah, you don't want to be trying to train at an optimal level while being at a suboptimal level physically.
Yeah. So you probably are going to be training at a lower kind of intensity.
Yeah. And
when you're trying low carbohydrate for the first time.
So what I generally suggest to people is come into it and first of all, start recording your diet and stop replacing the carbohydrates in your pantry and fridge. So that's the best place to start. Get the MyFitnessPal app, whatever app is out there easily accessible for you to record the food you're taking in. And then you'll get to judge like, oh, I'm really at the high end of the spectrum in terms of carbohydrate intake. I'm already very low. Okay, now that I've finished this loaf of bread, this pack of rice, like I'm not
Don't buy anymore.
Don't buy anymore.
If it's there, you're going to eat it.
Exactly.
And, one of the things is most people don't know actually what they're eating. So, just recording what you're eating, just so you know, it's like measuring anything. It's like measuring your power, your heart rate. You should at least have a good idea of what you normally eat.
Yeah, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it.
Exactly. Breaking,
you can't improve it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, try the MyFitnessPal app. See what you're eating. Don't buy the junk.
Yeah.
Right. Especially the junk, because you don't need it.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the real positives of the diet, if you want to call it a diet, whatever you want to call it, is going to be, and I say this to people because I'm an advocate of low carb for people trying it. I'm not necessarily an advocate of this is the only way to train for endurance sports or life,
right?
In general, because when you say, look, you're allowed 100 grams, 120 grams of carbs, carbohydrate is in essentially every single junk food or crappy food that is out there.
Anything that's vegan.
When you set a limit on that and go, you're allowed 100, and you go, okay, well, I'm going to eat a chocolate bar. Oh crap, I've only got 60 grams left.
Yeah.
Now your budget's on. It's very easy. It's a line in the sand. Oh, okay, well, shit, I can't eat another chocolate bar because I want to have like some tomato sauce on my fish, and I
want to have a glass of milk.
Yeah, even something like that. I really want to have a piece of fruit, and so then it's not what you are eating. It's not that you are eating low carb. It's that you're not eating junk. There's a difference there. So yeah, for me, I'm a huge responder. Love it. Love eating. Love the fat intake. Like, you've seen. I think my breakfast smoothie with cream, coconut cream.
It does look pretty good.
Yeah. Maybe some Greek yogurt. There's only 20 grams of carbs and about 1,000 calories. So that gets, and that's going to set you up for the whole day. I have the ability to burn fat. It stops me eating junk, especially. But the thing is, like, out of everyone that went through my study, no one's on a chronic low carbohydrate diet as of now. It's too hard to maintain for a lot of people.
Well, it gets difficult, like, especially like when you start racing and like you're in the heat of the race season, you're going hard and you need to recover because you need to bring back in those carbohydrates to recover after you've gone hard. But also when you're traveling, like, it gets really hard to do that when you're traveling.
The preparation side of things is extremely difficult when you are on a extended travel time.
Yeah, yeah.
Going
Because
away.
what are you gonna get when you stop at
Yeah,
the
exactly.
the
There's no
gas station?
convenience. There's no junk available.
Yeah,
It's hard. You
yeah.
can't. A lot of it is fresh or animal-based products, and you can't store those on the shelf. So
Right.
how are you going to get it? And in that, I try and tell people to understand that the goal of a low carbohydrate diet for sports performance is to increase your ability to burn fat. If you eat, it's not what you do sometimes, it's what you do all the time. So if you predominantly have a low carbohydrate diet, but then for 3 days, because you're traveling, you've just had to eat whatever you can get your hands on, you've gone for the healthiest option anyway, or maybe you haven't, maybe you got on the piss or something, and it's not going to derail your life. You now
Yeah.
you now aren't like back to square one.
No.
If you headed out for the bike ride, you now just have a bit more carbs to burn off before you access some of your fat, but the groundwork is there.
Yeah.
So what I do to help with my sort of personality and just generally how I operate is I'll go Monday to Friday ultra low, and then in the weekend just eat whatever I want. Also Friday night through to Saturday night, so Sunday's back on the low. So I actually go low Sunday to Friday night, and that allows me enough carbohydrates to get through my Saturday or weekend hard session, Saturday or Sunday very hard long session, then the midweek, which is Wednesday, Thursday, hard hit out. Still got enough carbs to get through that, and by Friday I'm pretty empty, but I'm topping up the tank that evening.
Yeah. So you smash the junk food, pretty much.
I do, yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
and then really that's also good in the way that like you feel so sick from eating so much junk and so many carbs that you actually don't want it for another couple days.
Yeah.
So it works doubly for that.
Yeah, and that is going to suit most athletes just due to our personalities. Like you're a particular person when you want to go and ride your bike or run for 5 hours. Like that's you're by yourself.
Yeah.
That's a particular type of person that suits the style. Yeah, other people. My wife, she just did the Tarawera Ultra, 13 hours. She's like 16th female. She's very moderation, so there's no need for her to go super high or super low on anything. She just can control herself.
Yeah, like she can buy a chocolate bar and not eat the whole thing.
Yeah, I can't even buy a
yeah,
chocolate block and not eat the whole thing.
Yeah, no, 200 grams and it's gone.
Family share block, like they
Yeah.
know, right? They
Yeah.
even got a resealable thing on the back.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's about. It's not for me. It's not for me.
So what do you think the take home points are for like people that are interested? They're low carb curious, let's call them.
Okay.
Keto curious. There are different things, but
Yeah.
What's the takeaway?
Where would I start? I guess the first of all is try it. Try it start by recording your diet and seeing where you are on the spectrum. Shoot for 2 grams per kg per day. So you pretty much just multiply your body weight by 2, and that's your daily intake of carbohydrate. If you're fairly heavy, you could. I probably actually wouldn't recommend much more than 150, 160. Like if you're 100 kgs and you got 200 grams of carbs, it's still a bit excessive, especially if you're carrying like 20% body fat. Then, because if you're 100 kgs but 8% body fat, most of it's muscle.
Yeah, so it's metabolically active. So
yeah,
it'll need some of that glucose.
Yeah. Shit, getting sidetracked here.
Yeah.
What I'd say is
those recommendations.
Yeah. Start, and it's science. There's always caveats.
Yeah.
Okay, so start by recording your diet and seeing where you are, dropping it down to 2 grams per kg per day, and seeing how you feel. Then the other thing to remember is if you're already on a low carb diet and you're just way too strict about it, you don't need to be. The goal is to burn more fat. If you are specifically trying to get into ketosis for whatever reason, then that's a different goal. Your main goal is to just be more metabolically flexible so that when you're going easy, you can burn fat. When you go hard, you can burn carbs. Then when you recover from that hard effort, you can burn more fat. You don't have to continuously rely on carbs. So remember that it's not all in or all out. It's you can just eat a bit.
Yeah. Because
And
for sport, you actually have to. You need carbohydrate for when you're competing.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And your third point is, Will?
Oh, well, I guess that's really it.
Just 2 points. That's good. I like it. That's
Yeah,
good.
like try it.
Yeah.
Try it for yourself and give yourself, if it doesn't work after a couple days, then keep going.
Yeah.
Actually give it a bit of an effort and try and get through a month. Plan your meals, record your diet, stick with the recording. It gets very taxing.
It gets easier as you go, though.
It does, because you also save your regular foods and
yeah.
barcode scanner and stuff on it. Yeah. And then you at least start to get an idea, and you'll learn some things about what you are eating currently. And yeah, you should see a small improvement, at least in your body composition.
Yeah. And that's what a
For
lot
the majority of people who are listening to this. If I get on, I guess my third one.
Okay. Hit us with it. Yeah.
Recommendation would be for the females. Now, females are not as metabolically flexible as men. And I say that in that not only can they not burn fat at the higher rates that the men can, they also can't burn carbs at the rate men can. So I've heard the saying before that the longer the race, the better females can compete. And they put that on their ability to burn fat. Okay, they can just burn more fat. They've got, they're so much more efficient. Actually, they're so much more inefficient at burning carbs. So if you and your partner are heading out, imagine you're the same fitness level, or just you and another female, you're same fitness level, and you shoot off for a 30-minute activity, race, running, swimming, whatever it is. Carbohydrate's going to play a reasonably significant part in that, and you're going to be able to burn more carbs than she is on just the general average. Okay, so you're going to be able to perform better amongst other strength-based things, but metabolically you're going to be able to perform better. But then if we go for 10 hours, now carbohydrate is no longer a huge contributing factor. So now your benefit is minimized, and her lack of benefit of ability to burn carbs is now neutralized and even with you. So now you can run, ride, swim for 10 hours and you don't have the benefit of burning a higher rate of carbohydrate on top of your ability to burn fat. And the females are now in line. Now it becomes more psychological, more musculoskeletal, and
yeah, well, that's when you
so for the females, it's try it, but again, you probably you might not find as good a benefit if you're doing it with your husband or partner or someone.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
So that would be it. What do you have any takeaways from your sort of experience on the other side of the fence?
Yeah, for me, I think it isn't something that I would have tried on my own, especially because what I was competing in at the time was something that was high intensity. So when you're doing high intensity exercise, you need those carbohydrates. Didn't really see the benefit, wouldn't have tried it, but then I tried it and actually I thought it was, quite good. I felt really good. I didn't eat quite as much. I lost some body fat. And actually, when it did get to time to go race, I would just eat some carbohydrates before the race, and it worked pretty good. So yeah, I would do it again in a heartbeat. I just need to be committed.
It is. Yeah.
To buy the right foods. Not eat an extra plate of rice or whatever. Yes.
So then once you start getting into what to eat and things, there's recipes out there. I've got some on my website, like a 2-week diet plan for people introducing themselves into a low carbohydrate diet.
So that tells you kind of like what to eat and like how to make it and get some good options.
Yeah. Shopping list, all that kind of stuff. It's predominantly focused at sort of New Zealand and Australia, where a majority of our audience is, but it works. I mean, peanut butter is peanut butter.
Yeah.
Because it's not a particular brand, I'm sure you can figure it out.
Yeah, it's pretty
And
close,
just
isn't
use
it?
grams instead of what kind of things do you guys use for weighing stuff?
Uh, for the
Like an
nutrition tech,
ounce or
it might
something?
be in grams. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I don't remember.
yeah. Uh, you can use a conversion thing on your phone.
Yeah. It's easy enough.
Sure, but yeah, being prepared, and trying it, being committed, recording your diet is going to help with that. It's going to make you feel a little bit more guilty when you think you're sneaking extra food. Like
Yeah.
you're not in my study. You're just doing it for yourself, so you're only cheating yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. What else would you? Oh, disclaimer: I have tried being vegan before. So before
Yeah,
people,
well, you know what though? When you tried being vegan, you did it totally wrong because you said all you could find to eat is junk food, which isn't actually
no,
true.
I just say you said yourself vegans predominantly eat junk.
Yeah,
Like I found it
I
really
do.
hard as an athlete trying to eat enough food to fuel myself off of just like brown rice and whatever else I was allowed eating. Can't even remember what I was allowed.
That's a lot of fiber. I
Oats.
would have gone for the white rice because fiber. But yeah, I saw you smashing the lollies, which you don't have to do. So it can work. And there's some
No,
quick.
I was barely even allowed lollies because I got gelatin in it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
see, I was
yeah,
strict vegan, not even eating gelatin. So
that is pretty strict.
it's don't knock it till you try it, and I tried it
Yeah.
just so I could, yeah,
Hate on it.
yeah. As people's choice is their choice, but
That's right. Yeah.
this is my findings into low carb, scientifically proven
Yeah, cool.
to at least reduce your body fat and potentially your overall performance. So worth a
Cool.
go. It will increase your ability to burn fats, 100%.
Yeah, which is good because we only have limited carbohydrates to use, so we want them there when
Exactly.
we
It's
need
just
them.
it's like that run walks that study I did. Like it just becomes it's just minimizing the margin for error. You may not be going faster, but then if for whatever reason you couldn't get your A bag or you dropped your bottle or whatever, then you're not as reliant on carbs for your performance. You can still the fall from no carbs to high to your fat burning isn't like this huge drop like it is for people who just like explode if
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
get a bit hypoglycemic.
Yeah, cool. I think this opens the door for us to talk about some other things related to this, like, training fasted and ketone supplements, but we'll have to save that for next time, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not like there's multiple ways to skin a cat. So if you just every morning hit it out without eating food, you're essentially like you're regulating your fat oxidation in that way.
Yeah.
So do you need to eat low carbs?
Yeah.
Like,
Just train fasted.
and how much training are you doing as well?
Mm.
Like with the elite athletes who are training 15, 20 hours, there's a higher chance to burn off your carbohydrates and then be forced to rely on fats again. Whereas when you're doing 5 to 7 hours, there's not the same rate. But when we're using absolute numbers like, oh, you should eat 500 grams, 300, whatever, you're looking at two completely different systems. You're looking at like a mini versus the VW transporter you got.
Oh, yeah,
Different,
that'll
different
win.
fuel, different
Yeah.
cars, or Ferrari maybe even.
Yeah, the
Different fuel
Volkswagen
types.
van will win anytime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with 10 people inside. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
you wouldn't get a 10p winner mini or a Ferrari.
No.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, man. That should about do us. Hopefully, that sort of answers a few questions, or at least provides a bit of information for people.
Yeah.
If you're in the Rotorua area or surrounding areas, I'm doing a seminar, a workshop on low carbohydrate sports performance the Sunday the 10th. So
Cool.
check that out on Facebook
Cool.
uh, or any other sort of social media that we're on.
Yeah, cool. Sounds like a good one.
All right, Matt.
Cool, man.
What's up this weekend?
This weekend, gonna do a bit of mountain biking for me this weekend. I'm heading down to the South Island the weekend after to do a couple days of an adventure mountain bike race.
Yep.
So, gonna get some big days on the trails. How about you?
Yeah, actually, yeah, heading down south. So we're going down for a friend's wedding, and that should be fun. I'll get in a little bit of running down somewhere else. New scenery is always nice.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
All right, Matt.
All right.
We'll catch you up next time.
All right. See ya.